Hey, friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is my buddy Gretchen Peters. She's going to share some stories about her friendship with John Prine.
I think it was 2012. We were playing some club in Galway. I can't remember the name of it. It was really a fun, kind of a nightclubby kind of place. It was not a bar, but it was like not a theater either. It was a nightclub. And John and Fiona came to the gig. And they were sitting up in the balcony, and we knew they were there, and we were so excited that they had come. I knew that they had a house, not far from Galway, and so they invited us to come up after the show, and we went up and hung out and talked to them. Then they invited us over the next day to visit their house and hang out. And John said, "Oh, by the way, you ought to open some shows for me." And I said, I think so. We should. We would love that. So we went out with him and did a little Southeastern run a couple of months later. And he also invited us to come play with him. We were both playing Cambridge Folk Festival a few days after that gig. And he said, "Why don't you come sit in with me at Cambridge?" And so we kind of got to know both of them that way. But I mean, to be invited to their house to hang out the very next day, they're just the most warm, welcoming, real people. And the whole time we were at the house the next day, John was working on an old radio that he had. He was like tinkering, trying to get it to work. And he was kind of going between that, and he had this obsession with this reality show about pawn shops that he used to watch all the time. And so he was kind of like going between this, and Fiona was the hostess, But John was kind of like doing his thing and going back and forth. And it was so wonderful to be so welcomed by both. That's just the way they both are, the way he was and the way she is. He loved oysters. He loved raw oysters. And we do too. And so occasionally she would just call and say, "Let's go have oysters," or something like that. It was never a big thing. Or I remember she invited us they had a Christmas party at their house in Nashville, and I brought my son who didn't know them. And it was just, we walked in and it wasn't a big, big party. I realized as we walked in, oh my God, we were just kind of invited, there's the family and a few friends. It wasn't like a big music business party, And that was kind of the way he was. He liked what he liked, and he'd been through enough shit to know what he liked and what he didn't like, and who he liked and who he didn't like. So you really felt like, if you were invited to his house like that, it's not because of any kind of machination of, who's cool and who's not, or who, he just either liked you or he didn't. And he lucky for all of us, he liked a lot of us. And, I have another memory of him, that same Irish trip, when they came to see us in Galway. That next night, I think it was, we all went out to dinner. He invited everybody, like his whole entourage and us, all of us out to dinner. We had oysters. And then we went to this pub in Kinvara on the west coast of Ireland to just play music. And there was maybe 4 of us that had been at the dinner, 1 Irish artist, 2 Irish artists, John and me. And then there were some other local musicians that kind of showed up because the word gets around. It's a tiny little place and the word gets around. And we just started, having a session. I mean, just going around, everybody doing songs. And Declan O'Rourke, I remember I'd never heard him before, and he just blew me away. Everybody was great. But John, every time he came around to him, all he wanted to do was sing Merle Haggard songs. So he never sang a John Prine song, I get that, because when I'm in that situation, I would much rather sing cover songs and old songs that I used to sing that I love. So all night long he sang Merle Haggard, I was in heaven because I know all of the Leona Williams harmony parts, But that was just, there was absolutely no pretense about him. And I think in some ways it's like his Midwesternness. It was so fully formed in him. He was very Midwestern, very just earthy, practical, funny, wry, but no pretense, no bullshit. We talked about meatloaf a little bit. I'm not a big meatloaf fan, so we talked about oysters more. But he had his, he definitely, like, he liked what he liked, and he was. I think we actually went out for meatloaf once. I didn't have the meatloaf, but we went to there's a place in North Nashville called Al's, and
my favorite breakfast place.
Yeah, it's awesome because we live so close. We can just be there in 3 minutes. And I think we went to Al's once, and of course he had the meatloaf. I think I went for something else. I'm not sure what it was, but yeah, he has very specific food favorites, and like to enjoy them. I think that's the other thing is, like, when you watched him on stage, I remember at Cambridge Folk Festival, it's a big audience, big stage. And I remember just watching him and thinking, he is really enjoying himself. Like, he doesn't have that edge of trying to be John Prine that you see in some artists when they're on stage. You kind of, it looks like fun, but it also looks like they're walking a tightrope. With John, it looked like he was in his living room. Like, he's just enjoying this. And I just think that is something to shoot for. If you're a performer, to be comfortable enough in your skin and with what you do and who you are. And also what a wonderful thing to be in that position at that point in your life, in your career, when, you got nothing to prove. You got nothing left to prove. Why not enjoy the hell out of it? And I saw it again with him. I mean, one of the last times I saw him was we played at his All the Best Fest in the Dominican Republic. November? Yeah, it was my birthday, so it was November 2019. And he just invited musicians that he loved. Just come on down, perform for the audience that's there, and have fun. And the last show, finale, we all, 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 or 3 by 3, came out and played one of his songs for him. And he took his chair and he put it squarely center, kind of backstage, not so that he was like right out in front, but he was totally visible, to the audience, and just dug it. And he was singing along his own lyrics, singing along with everybody that came up to sing, And I watched him and I just thought, he knows how to enjoy this. And it gave me a lot of comfort, actually, after he died, knowing that he found so much pleasure in what he did, and that he did enjoy himself. So, I mean, that I really think, if I could give a young performer advice, it's like, just figure out a way to enjoy this. And if you're uncomfortable, figure out a way not to be uncomfortable, because you think that this is a career and you have to do certain things a certain way. It's also your life, and it's going by. And if you don't enjoy it, what are you doing here?
How did you find out about his passing?
I got a text from Fiona. I was, it was early days, really early days of COVID. We were in Florida. We had just sort of escaped and gone to our place in Florida where we could hide out. We could be away from people more easily because we live right in the middle of the city here in Nashville. And I got a text really late at night from Fiona that he wasn't doing well. And actually the first thing that I heard from her was that she had gotten COVID probably on the flight back from Paris. He'd wanted to play a gig in Paris, and it was just like something he really wanted, and he wanted to stay at the George Cinq Hotel, which is super fancy. And he did that. Thank God he did that. But I think that she thought that maybe they had caught it like coming back on the plane, or who knows. But so the first thing I heard is that she had it, and that she had isolated from him, and that he had been tested and it was inconclusive. And I thought, well, thank God, maybe they can stay apart, because I knew that, health-wise, he had so much, his health was so compromised that it wasn't going to be a good thing. And then I got a text from her that he was not doing well. And then we all just sort of were watching and waiting. And when I heard that he was stable, I mistakenly thought, that's good. He's stabilized. I just assumed that means you'll pull through if you're stable, right? Like, you're sick, but you're going to pull through. And then the next thing, I can't remember the timeline exactly, but the next thing was another text from her that he had passed away. And I want to say that it wasn't unexpected, but it was, because I thought, no, he was stable. And he's been through so much, and he came out fighting. He's been through cancer. And, I had lunch with him in Florida, like just 6 weeks before that. And I remember when we had that lunch, he got out of his car and he had a cane, and Barry had just had hand surgery and he was in a cast. And they just looked at each other and started laughing, look at us, old guys trying to still do it, and I just thought that can't be right. But it was true. And that was the lowest point of the whole pandemic to me, was the day he died. It was just the lowest of the low. Like, how can John be gone?